Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Dr. Ravi Iyer. He is a physician scientist, entrepreneur, transformational coach, leader, keynote speaker, and the author of The Reaper's Dance 1000 Days of COVID. So, this is my brief introduction of Dr. Ravi. The full bio will be at the end of this video. And the topic of our conversation is the art of living leadership. So many questions. We already started talking about the topic before the recording, and I wish I was recording already, but we will restart that. My very first question to you, Ravi, is who are you in your own words? How would you describe who you are in this moment?
Who I am for the majority of my life and majority of my work is I play the role of a physician and healer. That is the task I play. I do have other roles. I am a father. I'm a husband. I am a son and a brother. But but those are relatively less dominant roles in my life. My children are grown and adult, so I don't actively have to parent them. They are standing in their own legs and doing their own things in life.
Right.
So I'm in that phase. Me and my wife, we enjoy their accomplishments and the stuff they do, but I don't have to be very hands-on involved anymore. That is more a little bit of a enjoyable period of time now. In my role as a healer and a physician, I'm very much involved. Every day I work, I see patients. There is a there is a personal role I bring, which has enhanced over the years, and that comes out of my many years of involvement, almost 30, 40 years of involvement in Advaita Vedanta. I started at, well, it's almost 52 years of involvement
Yeah.
in Advaita. I was 14 when I started. So that's a way of, it's a philosophy, and it's an Eastern Indian philosophy, uh, and, uh, and a way of looking at life and the way and the being of human beings, which which has parallels. It has parallels in Zen Buddhism. It has parallels in Kashmir Shaivism. It has even parallels in some of the writings of Heidegger and Socrates and Plato and more modern modern thought leaders like Werner Erhard and the Est and the Forum and the Landmark. They all have parallels to Advaita Vedanta, but Advaita Vedanta kind of is precedes in antiquity almost everything else.
Yeah. And that's one of my, for some reason, I've been very interested in Advaita Vedanta. Has been 15 years now. And I call myself a student of Vedanta. And has been, I would say, in a way, liberating. But it's when you go deeper into that, analyzing that, what that means really to be free from, there's actually nothing to be free from. We are freedom itself. We are peace itself. We are basically what we are looking for. So it's this wonderful way of perceiving reality. This, the reality here as we call it life as human beings. So let's talk for a moment about this idea of experience and narrative. So experience and storytelling. So as I mentioned off record, I see everything as storytelling, as a story, nothing of existence itself. So talk to me for a moment from that perspective, if that's okay.
I'll talk to you about it from two aspects. One is the traditional representation
Yeah,
and the concept that is used in both Kashmir Shaivism and Advaita. There are certain terms that are used, and then the more modern way, there are certain terms.
yeah,
And some of these terms are equivalent and they are representative of each other. So, for example, in Kashmir Shaivism, they talk about Shiva or reality,
yeah.
and they talk about Shakti or awareness. And they say that reality, the awareness aspect of reality, creates the story. So the Shiva is pure consciousness or awareness, and Shakti is the property of awareness that looks upon awareness and creates a name, form, a narrative.
Right.
So they consider consciousness like heat and light are two aspects of fire, like flowing and wetness are two aspects of water and they can't be separated. Like that, consciousness or awareness and storytelling are two aspects of one entity.
Mm, mm, yeah,
They can't be separated.
yeah, true.
Now,
Yeah.
when you reside in close proximity to one of these two aspects, when you reside in close proximity to awareness, then the experience you have is one of freedom, of limitlessness, of possibilities. When you reside in close proximity and attach and association with story or narrative or name form, the experience you have is of limitation, of definition, defined options,
Yeah.
and limited possibilities. Even if there are 1,000 possibilities, it's still a limited possibility as compared to limitless possibility on the other side. All right? That is Kashmir Shaivism speaking. In Advaita, they call this as Brahman and they call this as Maya. So, Maya is your storytelling,
Yeah.
and Chit or consciousness is awareness. So there are different words that have been used in different systems, but they represent each. If you look at the equivalence and if you use a glossary and say this equals this equals this, you can see how it all matches. In the way I describe it to my patients, because there is great power in understanding this,
Mm, yeah.
is at any given moment you have the ability to perceive reality as awareness, and you have the ability to create a story out of that perception as narrative. You can call this Shiva or Shakti, you can call this Brahman, and you can call this Maya. You can do all of this. It doesn't matter what name you want to use for it.
Right. Right.
The property function is always the same. One is limitless, pure awareness as a witness. The other is bounded, defined options as a name, form, story. In the first Limitless pure awareness, time and space does not exist. There is no entity for whom time and space exists. In this name form existence, time and space is the matrix upon which this name form existence is erected. But it is erected by you.
Mm.
The only reason the world seems to persist real for you and for me is because the tools that you use to create the world, the tools you use to create color, the tools you use to create sound, the tools you use to create touch, taste, and smell are the same tools that I use. And therefore, the worlds we create are similar. But the world of a bumblebee is different.
Mm. Right.
He, the bumblebee creates a different reality. A dog creates a different reality. So each of these species has a certain set of realities that are common to the species. So for a human being, we have a range of light, violet, indigo, blue, yellow, orange, red, you know, all of that, Vibgyor, green, yellow, orange, red. And we paint our creations using these colors. All right.
Mm.
Because all of us use the same colors, we think that we all see the same creation. But within each one of us, there are slight variations. And out of these variations, our perception of reality is never the same. So, whatever we see and whatever we respond to, so somebody speaks to us, what we hear and what we respond to is entirely a construct. So, what I say is you have 3 seconds to freedom.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
so you have the impact. I told you earlier, there are photons striking your retina. There are molecules hitting your nose, giving you smell, molecules falling on your tongue, giving you taste, molecules touching your skin, giving you touch, wind hitting your eardrum, giving you sound. Now, these are impacts.
Yeah.
Now, out of these impacts that the environment has upon your sense organs, you create the story, you create the world for yourself. Now, between the thing is that the creation of the world occurs so closely to the actual event, which is the impact, that it looks like a magician's poof, like,
Mm.
whoa, the rabbit came out of the hat. But the the there is an, if you're able to stay engrossed in the impact, you will find a space, a small space where you can stand and you can see the narrative emerging. And at that moment, you have 3 seconds of time.
Ah, wow.
If you keep your attention on the impacts, you will see the narrative collapse.
Mm.
If you direct your attention to the narrative will gain strength. And when it gains strength, out of that first primary narrative, secondary narratives will pop up. Like that, like like a flower blooming and the petals opening up like that. It starts with one bud, but then it becomes many petals. Like that, the first primary narrative opens up into many subsidiary narratives. And in this way, a whole drama is played out.
Mm.
And a story of life comes out. But it's all just a story. And you have power. So once you understand that, you can play. You can play with the lightness of being in life.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I read that you saying that on the podcast, the lightness of being, right? That's exactly what it has done for me. Not all the time. A lot of times I, of course, give attention to the story and then I'm living the story. I can feel the body, mind just living it. And then it's kind of it's not fun a lot of times because it has to do with conditions and because I had a lot of traumas and then they come back. But it's faster now to go back to that place of the lightness of being, as you say. So I think it's a matter, it's almost like a timing thing, but I'm very much aware that that's also an illusion by the idea of time and space. So it's wonderful. With that in mind, Dr. Ravi, what do you feel is the purpose of the story of life, as you said? Is there a purpose behind that, or just a story?
It is like asking what is the purpose of rain falling.
Hmm, yeah.
It falls. There's
Uh,
no purpose. We can even the purpose you make is a purpose that is a story.
yes.
Yeah. So I can make a purpose for myself. Like the purpose of my life is to heal people and empower people. Like that's a story also.
Yes. How do you integrate that knowledge? That's profound. I mean, to me, that's truth with capital T. And I've been trying to align the body, mind, its conditionings and let's say tendencies to go to the story. That's what I try to do day to day. So how do you do that as a physician? I'm just wondering.
See, here's the thing. We seem to think that if we don't have a reason, then there is no meaning.
Right.
We think that somehow there needs to be a meaning for life to exist. I don't see the lions and tigers asking for meaning for their existence. The birds in the sky don't ask meaning for their existence. The all of nature, the only creature that demands a meaning for their own existence is human beings. No other creature demands meaning for their existence.
True. And the reason behind that is because we have the tools, most sophisticated tool.
No, no, no. That also is very conjecture. We
Yeah.
as we go along the way, we find that octopuses have cognitive capacities that are amazingly complex. There are marine animals that have amazing complexity of cognitive capacity. Dolphins,
Yes, dolphins, right.
orcas, or killer whales, they all have complex sociobiologies. So we are pretty unilateral in this entrapment and fascination with the story and the need to have meaning.
Mm,
There is no need to you can, for me, I recognize that I have chosen to given a meaning so that I can have some structure for directing my action. But I know that the meaning is an elected meaning by me. At the end of my last breath on this life, I will not know whether the meaning was useful or not. All I know is that I used the meaning of empowerment, of a life of empowerment, to help certain people live in certain ways. That's all. Whether that was good or bad is entirely debatable.
mm. So I think the reason why Advaita Vedanta has now become more popular per se, like has touched, impact so many lives, is because it's really a challenge to to give up. It's almost like not giving up, even to surrender this to itself, to life itself, returning to freedom. It's almost like prisoners, right? We have become prisoners of a reality that we are not even aware of. That's not completely true.
So I talk about that. A child, when they are born, they don't have any construct.
Right.
So a child comes across a stick and he plays the stick, he lifts the stick and experiences the stick with great joy, because for him the stick has so many possibilities. It can be a walking stick, it can be a pole, a spear, a sword. It can be so many things, all right?
Yeah. Yes.
And then someday, one day, he makes the decision that the stick is a sword. From that moment onwards, the stick has only one possibility. All sticks in his life are swords. Every stick he finds on the ground becomes a sword. It has no possibility of becoming anything else.
Mm. Yes.
So, in this way, he creates what I call the Pink Floyd effect. The Pink Floyd, one another brick on the wall. He
Yes.
creates a little.
Yeah.
He creates a little construct, and he builds the wall around him. And then, after some time, by the time he's a teenager, he's living entirely inside the walls of his constructs.
Yes.
And once he has built those walls high enough, life cannot present to him except as the options that are defined by the wall around him. All right.
Yeah.
So, my job as a physician is I help people crack their walls. When I work in a business, when I work with the business leaders, I help them crack their walls, the walls that prevent them from seeing reality with a different possibility, seeing their world. So, these walls are not just fixed prejudices, they also limit the way we look at options around us. So, for once you I have seen people come with fixed ideas about what was possible and capable by their teams, and then
Yeah.
I did nothing with the team. I just broke the wall of the team leader, and suddenly the teams became empowered. How is that possible? I did not work with the team, I worked with the team leader, and suddenly the team is becoming empowered because I worked with breaking the wall of the team leader.
Yes. Yeah.
So my job is to break the wall. I don't have to remove the wall. I just have to make a crack. And once I make the crack, the job is done, because from that point onwards, whether the crack is big enough to just let light come through,
Yeah.
or it is big enough for a person to walk out, the wall is no longer existed because it has cracked. Once a wall breaks, it does not matter how big the break is. The break itself is liberating.
Mm. Yes. Yeah.
So, I work with patients with trauma, and I spend zero time analyzing their trauma or analyzing the reasons why they hurt. I spend zero time. I spend zero time having them tell me in great detail the the reasons why they are upset with so and so in their life,
Yeah.
or the reasons why they can't have a relationship with some people. And all the reasons are infinite and never ending, but the reasons do not bring you freedom. The reasons only strengthen your chains. All the reasons of your life only reinforce the walls. They give the walls solidity.
Mm.
So what I do is I do what Archimedes does. Archimedes, the guy, Eureka guy.
I don't.
Yeah, he's the guy, the Greek scientist who discovered
Oh yeah.
buoyancy, and yeah,
Yes.
Eureka, jumped into a tub
Yeah.
naked and then came running out
Yes.
saying Eureka, Eureka. Yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy.
Yeah.
That's the guy. Yeah. So I do the Archimedes trick, and that is Archimedes once said, "Give me a place to stand, and I'll move the world." So I show people their identity. I show them their true self. So when I show them their true self, what happens is their identity shifts. So whatever, so suddenly it is like, let us take, for example, you are playing the role of you know, a Shakespeare tragedy queen, and you have been doing this role for so long that you have forgotten
Yeah.
that you are Valeria,
Right.
and you forget to go home.
Yes.
And all I do is I show you that this is a role and this is who you are. And you can, at the end of the play, go home
Yeah.
and be who you are.
Yes.
Once they do that, they actually enjoy the trauma role. They say, oh, wow, the
Yes.
trauma drama was so funny.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. So, your work, do you see also this choiceless choice of doing what you do, this movement of being life itself, just universal intelligence doing what it does, also trying to ease unnecessary suffering? Would you call it that? Would you assign that meaning somehow?
When when people come to me, they come because they are suffering. Either they are having some ache in their body or they are having an ache in their soul. And and regardless of whether they are suffering, how they are suffering, sometimes they are having an ache in their mind, in their heart about the work they are doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. There is some part of their life that is not working the way they would like it to work. That's all.
Right.
And what I do as a physician is not just dealing with their physical body, I deal with their emotional and their psychological as well as their spiritual body, and I work with that because you can't do one and ignore the other. Now, in this process, there is a sense many times of being in a zone where life seems to flow
Mm.
and action happens. But that zone is not nothing different than Michael Jordan being in the zone when he's putting 5-pointer baskets. Whenever somebody is working the work that they were born to do without conflict, and when they are working smoothly without any hesitation or resistance, they are in the zone. And in that zone, everything is harmonious. And they experience what I call a lightness of being.
Right.
There is no thinking, there is just being. So, for example, I teach leadership, and when I teach leadership, people end up at the end of the lecture or the course coming out as being leader as a function of their natural self-expression. They don't
Mm.
know leadership, they are leaders. There's a difference. Even, most leadership courses, they teach the mechanics of leadership, but they don't create leaders.
Mm. Yeah.
I create leaders by virtue of teaching people how to get in touch with themselves, because all of us are essentially leaders deep inside. We are leaders who have convinced ourselves that we can be followers.
Mm. Yes. Interesting. Yes. It makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, resonates profoundly because I'm very familiar, of course, with this philosophy, the concept, the flow, of course, light, being light, being, only being. What you said caught my attention just now, Ravi, about born. born to do this work. So we are talking about, again, the tools, the body itself, in the way it is designed biologically to do certain things.
So the word, the Sanskrit word is called prarabdha. The Sanskrit word is prarabdha or destiny.
Yeah. Ah,
And so they say that destiny is given to all the constructs. Every construct that you have in your life has a beginning, a middle, and an end, a certain destiny. And those constructs are destined to behave in a particular way by the nature of their being.
right.
For example, there are people who are destined to have a darkness around them. They are destined to do certain things that are considered dark. And there will be people who are destined to do some things that are considered light. Now, there is a play now a lot of people will have a problem with that. They're saying that, oh, that means they get caught up in this idea of sinner and saved and so
Yeah.
on and so forth. I don't see anyone as capable of stuck in a particular way, but when you have it is like having a wheel set in motion. Now, once you have a huge boulder rolling down a hill, there is a certain momentum that it has that makes its course inevitable and irresistible. Now, can that boulder be stopped by a bigger force? Yes. Sometimes the amount of force required to stop a huge boulder rolling down a hill is more than you can bring to bear.
Right.
Some people don't have the resources to stop it. So for them, that destiny is destined. You can't change it.
Mm,
Now, but are all destinies infinitely unchangeable? Absolutely not. They're all changeable. But who will do the changing differs based on the changer's capacity.
yes. Yeah.
I may be able to stop a small stone, may not be able to stop a huge boulder. And if I'm faced with a huge boulder, I'll say, I'm sorry, this boulder has to run its course, or I'll step aside.
Yes.
So, and a small stone coming down, I'll block it. So, what I do or what I don't do changes from situation to situation, and
Right.
it is dependent on what needs to be changed and what tools I have at my disposal to change it. But coming back, in Kashmir Shaivism, there is something called, they talk of perception as if perception is identical to apprehension, gridna. That is, you grab at reality with your senses.
Yeah. Mm,
So in fact, they say that smelling a food is the same as tasting a food. So there are certain rituals where they are preparing food meant for offering to the deity,
yeah.
and the cook, while he's cooking that, will cover his nose and mouth so that he does not smell the food, so that the first experiencer of the food will be the deity. No
Right.
other human being would have smelt or tasted the food before it is offered to God himself. So these are concepts. But if you look at the concept, look at the phrase, smelling of food is same as tasting. We know now in science that taste and smell are related,
Yeah.
and that a lot of people When they have a sinus infection, your nose is blocked, they will say, I can't taste food.
True.
Food tastes funny, they'll say. All right. So the concept that you actually eat reality through your senses.
Mm. Yeah.
You when you look at something, you are actually eating that through your eyes. When you smell, you are eating it through your nose, through your when you eat your mouth, you eat something. When you touch, you actually partake of something that you touch. So the notion of being intimately connected with the reality around you is very, very ancient.
Yes. Yes. Because of the interconnectedness of everything. But beyond that is what comes to mind is something that I heard Swami saying that I think was Vivekananda. He said something like, it's not that everything's God is in everything, but everything's in God. So if everything's happening in the absolute reality, of course everything is one, not two. That's why Advaita, right? Vedanta, it's one. So one reality. They aren't two. So it's very clear to me when I hear, like before I had a hard time, the mind, the logical mind understanding these things, like, oh, it sounded so strange. Now it's just so natural, like that's it. There's a level of a beautiful level of acceptance from the intellectual mind, from to just rest in it, and whatever is here, whatever is present, it is, and there's no resistance anymore. So that has made a big difference in this existence, in a sense of suffering. It suffers less, the body mind complex. And even the mind letting go of the body too, when I feel a little, the body's, the immune system is dropping and something's happening, there's this level of peace. Something happens that just, it's happening again. And it just let it be. There's no fighting anymore.
Who you are is free.
Yeah.
And it is like waking up from a dream where in the dream you had a nightmare
Yes.
and you were chased and hunted and you were running for your life. And then you wake up and you say, oh, you know,
Yeah.
so that's just the way it is. And once you wake up, you don't regret how many hours you had the dream for. It doesn't
Yes.
matter.
And yeah.
So similarly, once you come out the other side and you look back at the years of suffering, you don't regret that anymore. You just say, "Oh yeah, it was there,"
Yeah.
you know. And it is no longer at a stage where you will get to a stage where you don't even say that, "Oh, it's so too bad that I had the nightmare." It is you just say, "Oh well, I had a nightmare," and then you went on.
Yes.
So like that, you can look back at hard times in your life, all the losses, the suffering, all of that, as as an imagined event, an
Yes.
event that happened in to a different person in a different life, but that person and that life does not necessarily have any connection with what is evolving right now in front of you.
Right. So it is in a way changing the narrative. The story has been replaced in a way.
No, it is changing your identity.
Yeah, the core. Yeah, yeah,
At the core, when you shift, then whoever it was to whom that all of that was real no longer exists. Who you are right now is not that person.
right. Mm,
So, like, there have been I'm 66 years old, and there have been times in my past where I have not acted wisely or acted in ways that would be consistent with the values that I ascribe to now. Now, just because I was inconsistent in the past does not mean that I have no right to become consistent today. So
Yes.
we tend to, this is something that we always have, right? Human beings, they look at somebody who was once a bad person and then they change and then they don't believe the new person. They say, oh, he was a bad person. Maybe he's just faking it.
Right.
All right. I say differently. I say that whatever the person is at this instant is real for this instant.
Right. Right.
And then the next instant, he has to make it real for that next instant.
Yes.
And if he doesn't make it real and goes back to doing something else, then he is real in that manner for that instant. So being a bad person is a real truth, and being a good person is a real truth, and they are two independent entities that are not dependent on each other. So here's the thing, we tend to connect. We say that this person is a bad person, and therefore whatever he does today is also going to be bad, and the two are connected. And I say that no, he was bad in this instant, and in this instant he has the possibility of being something other than bad.
Right.
And he has also the same, at that instant he also has the possibility of being bad or other than bad.
Yes.
Now in this, so he has to make a choice. See, this is what people have when they get married, right? They think that when they say I do in the church, that I do is going to last 60 years. No, you have to say I do every morning. You have to say I do every minute. You have to say I do when your spouse is yelling at you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to say I do
Yeah.
when the spouse is not giving you any reason to say I do.
Yes. So true.
And and just as a matter of choice, that this is who I choose, regardless
Yes.
whether they look good or bad, whether they are yelling at me or saying sweet things. I choose to live my life with XYZ person. That's it.
Right. Right. You see, this is a very insightful idea concept again. Yeah, the story, of course, that's one that we've been talking about here, the narrative, but also the story of the one who chooses, right? That's fascinating to me because from what I understand, there's no one's making choices. Universal intelligence, pure consciousness itself, it's doing it all. So there's no one really choosing anything.
You cannot have it both ways.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we could. Yeah.
No, you can't. So,
Yeah.
so when you are going to talk about being as a consciousness, there is no entity even standing there
Yeah.
capable of having conversation.
Yeah. Right.
So then you and I don't have any conversation. We can only sit here silent, staring at each other.
Yes.
The minute you are conversing, you have already separated yourself away from that consciousness.
Ah.
And then once you are separated, you are responsible for everything that you create.
For the story that you are
Yes,
creating.
so you are accountable. The reason being, you are speaking. If you were silent, then you can say, I don't have accountability for what is happening.
Yeah.
But the silence has to be of being, not silence just of mouth. You cannot have internally chattering and silent of just the speech. No,
Yes. Yeah.
it is silence of mind also.
Yeah. So it seems like now we gosh, we are almost at the end, and I could never stop talking to you really if I had a choice, which I do have a choice to end the story here. But so we're speaking of karma then, right, Ravi? In that sense, that's what we call karma, being responsible for the story and the consequences of doing certain things.
The karma, sanchita karma, agami karma, and prarabdha karma. So the three kinds of karma. Okay. Sanchita karma is the actions that you have done in the past out of a sense of doership that have to be, whose fruits have to be experienced. All right. Agami karma is the actions that you are destined to perform out of the momentum that has been generated by past actions.
Mhm. Wow.
And prarabdha karma is the actions that are due to come to you out of just the destiny that of who you are. So all these karmas exist for one person.
Mm.
So these, it is said in Advaita that these karmas are like three wives,
Very wise. Yeah.
all right, and they all have a single husband.
Yeah.
That single husband is I. That single husband is your identity.
Yeah.
When that identity ceases, then the three wives also lose their spouse structure. See, all the three wives become widowed instantly at the same time when the husband dies. So if the husband is dead, you cannot go around saying that the three wives are still wives. They are not.
Right.
They also cease to exist as wives. So karma loses its power to influence when your self identity disappears.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is what there's a name actually. Is that it's living. It's the enlightened living. There's a name in Sanskrit that I forgot now. I have a book actually on it. It's the living. That's the one that's already free. The living freed, something like that. The translation. So yeah, that would make sense. But the body's still here, and the body holds the destiny that you spoke of. So from that perspective, that kind of karma will end when the body dissolves, right?
So when the identity of if you were to talk about a realized
Yeah,
master,
yeah,
a
yeah,
realized master, once they lose their self identity, for them karma stops acting. You may look at karma working on their body, but they
uh,
don't see it as working at all.
mm,
They don't experience it the same way.
yes,
I'll give you an example. A surgeon takes somebody to the operating room and the anesthesiologist administers the anesthetic and makes the person unconscious. All right?
yeah,
The surgeon takes a knife and cuts. For the surgeon, the body is being cut. So surgeon sees it as being cut. For the person who's unconscious, he does not experience the body being cut.
right,
For him there is no body.
yeah,
So people look at a sage as a realized soul, as a realized being, and they say, "Oh, he is suffering. He's got some prarabdha karma." But for the sage, they are like they don't experience that karma at all. They are unaffected by it.
That also, yeah, that also resonates somehow true to me. We are almost at the end. I do want to mention again the book that you have written, The Reaper's Dance. I love that word, dance. Is it funny that you use that word dance? The dance of life, the dance of COVID. And then also your website, Dr. Iyer, so DRIYER.com. This is the website.
DRIYER.com.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And then I'll have that on the podcast notes. They'll be here. And I really don't want to stop talking to you. I have all the questions here. I guess the related to your work, I know you do a workshop. So this is only for the question really that wants to be come out of me here is why not being a spiritual teacher? Because I see you as a spiritual guide, not just now, but as before too. I felt that way. So I'm wondering why are you planning to lead some spiritual retreats or workshops more towards Vedanta with using the language that you have
If
used
you're
here today?
asking, can I do it? Yeah, I have enough knowledge to do it.
Yes.
I have not specifically opted to do it, but that does not mean that I don't use those principles on
Yeah.
a daily basis
True.
to impact people's lives. I'm a far more direct and experiential person in the teachings I do.
Yeah.
But if I ever am asked to lead a satsang or a discussion, yeah, it is easy to do that. That's not that's not a that's not something that is impossible for me.
Right. And I could see that today. So it's very I love your metaphors. Like it makes very easy.
The reason why is because the metaphor of Vedanta and Advaita has been, for the most part, oriented towards a kind of thinking that is centuries old.
Uh,
And the kind of language that we are using in this modern world, we need to adapt that metaphor into a modern language structure to continue to let people have access to that truth. The truth remains the same, but
yeah.
because the way we access truth through language, we that's language is the only way we can approach reality.
Yeah.
So people talk about mantra is nothing except language. Language, when structured in a way that drives contemplation and anchors you in reality, that is mantra. Mananat iti trayate iti mantra. So, mananat trayate iti mantra. It means that mananat means that which contemplated upon
Hi.
gives you protection. That which protects you upon being contemplated upon is a mantra. Mantra is that which protects you. So the highest protection is shifting out of your bounded entity, the out of bondage, out of your limited narrative of your life, the constructs that limit you, and stepping out into the open courtyard of your own consciousness. The space of your consciousness is immensely freeing.
Yes, 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 a billion times to that truth. Yes. I have to ask you a last question. Gosh, would you like to add anything else, Ravi, that you left unsaid?
The one most important thing that is necessary for people is to recognize that freedom exists within themselves. They carry it with them
Yeah.
all the time, and they need to basically just find out who they are. If they find out who they are, they will recognize that they are always free.
Yes. I know you're using the language of who you are, but I like the what we are. It's more, like you said, it's detached, right? For limitations. What? And then the idea of freedom, yes, it's freedom. It's what this is. And I used to ask the question about, if consciousness is freedom, why it chose to be this, something limited? It feels very limiting, especially when we don't know, we don't have the knowledge. This knowledge felt very limited. So I used to think that way. Why would it choose to be this? But then, I mean, it just came to me, of course, the insight of why not? So freedom is free to be whatever it is, whatever it is, whatever it is, and how it is, without any construct, without any limitations. It's just truly, truly amazing.
If you just think about life as a drama that you play, and you are just an actor playing that,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
becomes easy to play it.
Yes, knowing that you are the actor, right?
Correct. Never forgetting that you're the actor.
Yes, yeah. And you are actually a short film actor. I didn't mention that here. I'd like to mention that in the very end. So, how interesting that is. You got to know the rules in order to break them. So, you're breaking lots of rules here by knowing them. Thank you so much again, Dr.
You're
Ravi.
welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you for your presence in this reality.
Thank you.
And we'll be in touch again. We'll talk
Yes.
soon. Take good care. Bye for now.